see.
All right, here we go. We are ready to roll here, and welcome everyone to the 13th episode of Dear Dr. Fantasy. I am so delighted to have as my very special guest today, Angela from Do Unicorns Read. Hello, Angela. How are you?
Hello, Philip. How are you? I'm great because I'm on Dear Dr. Fantasy. What could be
Yay,
better?
yeah. Well, I'm so happy that you're here. And I do feel like because this is the 13th episode, perhaps we should have brought a hobbit with us. But
Definitely.
yeah.
Yes, we could have needed something. Now that you mentioned that, if you would have said this earlier, I would have invited my plant companion.
Oh, yes, that would have worked, of course.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so sure. We
Well,
make do.
we'll make do, and I'm sure your plant companion is not very far away. So
Uh, near a windowsill here, yes.
okay, good. So yeah,
We
if we
can
need,
we just count her in.
yes. So she's in. She's just going
So
to be a little
we're okay.
camera shy.
We're
Yeah.
good.
So it's so wonderful to have you here, and I am so excited that you started a channel because I know for a fact that you have a lot of really great things to say about stories, about literature, and we're going to talk about some of the books, some of the series that you love, and some that you're reading. And you've already, it's a fairly new channel.
It's brand new, yeah.
Yeah,
Must be the newest and smallest channel that you ever had on Dear Dr. Fantasy.
I believe that is the case.
Because
Yes.
it's only here since the 1st of June. The 1st of June, the first video went up, and we're 6 weeks in. 6 weeks, yeah.
6 weeks. It's a baby. It's a baby channel.
Oh
So,
yeah, it's right. Yeah, just still in diapers, not weaned or anything. No.
yeah, well, that's kind of exciting though, isn't it? Because
It's very exciting. Yeah, definitely. Oh yeah, totally.
So
Great
what?
adventure.
So what made you decide to throw your hat in the ring and start your channel? If we could start with that.
It's a bit tricky to pinpoint the exact date of this. I'm watching BookTube for maybe 3.5 years now. And one of the first things I think that's very evident if you watch BookTube is that it's very on the young side. So a lot of people on YouTube are, let's say, in the 20 to 30 bracket.
Not a lot of gray beards out there. Yeah.
A lot of gray beards out there. Yeah. But not,
No.
So I found it at first very hard to find channels that would actually interest me. So I like predominantly fantasy and read predominantly fantasy. And since I'm doing that, of course, if you put in fantasy channels, now you get big names like Daniel Green, for example, and others. Mike's Books Reviews would be another one. Maybe, well, people kind of like during this time always kind of like said, and why don't you start the channel? I was always, oh, no, I'm me. No, I don't want this. I don't have the time for this. I can't do this. What do I know about video making? Nothing. And maybe around 4 months ago, I had lunch with a friend, and we started talking about this, that, and the other, and BookTube came up as well. And we both agreed there aren't many BookTubers in our age bracket, first of all. And secondly, I don't know, I made this kind of like bit flippant comment that I said, actually referring to you and AP, and I said, you know what I wish would be out there? A female booktuber who has those credentials and does the same in-depth analysis, but more from a female perspective. That would be really, really cool. And my friend just started laughing and said to me, you know who you just described, don't you? And I said, me? No. So I don't want a BookTube channel. And yeah, I mean, I comment quite a bit on BookTube, and I got comments as well where people said, have you ever thought of starting a channel?
Yeah.
And I was like, no. And I don't know, like 4 months ago, I just sat down one afternoon, grabbed a piece of paper and said, well, if I would have a BookTube channel, what would I call this and what would I do? And started
Oh,
making a list and then took it from there, basically. Yeah.
oh, how
So it's
wonderful. So
how
you
the
had,
unicorns read.
so Do Unicorns Read was on a list of possible names then? Is
It
that?
was on the list of possible names. Yes, I can't
Oh,
recall what else was there, but a lot of stuff with the reading this, the reading that. One was because yeah, my so-called day job is that I'm a visual artist, so the
yeah,
reading painter, of course, was one of the options. But there are so many reading this, reading that.
yeah,
There are thousands of channels that have book in their title in all its variations, or library.
yep.
Dragons is out as well, since we have the critical dragon, no?
Yeah,
So
he took dragons. Yep. That
yeah,
was
he so totally dead for new channels. Yeah, so this is how kind of like Do Unicorns Read
Oh,
came
I
into the
love the
world.
name. It conjures up, of course, fantasy,
Yeah, yeah, exactly, no?
but
And I thought I might
also
as well go with one of those wacky questions where we might think, we want the answer to that.
exactly. I love it because how many channel names are a question, right? Not
Yeah,
many.
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, no, yeah,
So
yeah.
you made
No,
yourself
not
an
many.
enigma right to begin with, and probably it's a bit of a hopeless but wonderful quest to answer the question: Do unicorns read?
Oh, it will be never ending, of course. It will
Yeah.
be never ending.
Yeah, yeah. So that's wonderful. Well, I
Yeah.
love it. And just to give the viewers here a sense of kind of what you want to do with this channel now that you've started it, and what are some of, well, maybe we'll save that question for later. I want to ask my standard question about your reading journey and what are some of
Yeah,
your
okay.
favorite, most important reads. But first, let's talk about where you see the channel going, perhaps, or what you're doing now. Maybe is an easier one, but if you want to tackle
Yeah, what
that.
I'm doing now is, well, I have so far up a mix of like review videos, which I suppose a little bit more on the analytical side, which are not just holding up the book, reading the blurb on the back type of thing, but kind of
Right.
like try to give a little bit more about the characters, the world building and things like that.
Yep.
And the two I've done so far, I already have a little bit, how shall I say, an emphasis on looking at female characters in those books. Like, are they well done? Are they not well done? How much agency do they actually have? Things
Right.
like that, because I think that is, yeah, one of the, let's say, more central features I probably want my channel to have, this idea, yeah, to kind of give a bit more a female angle on fantasy literature,
Yeah.
because I think it has gotten much better over the last couple of years that there are more female-run channels in the fantasy bracket,
Yeah.
but I think it's still very male-dominated. So I think it can take another channel that might perhaps look at this a bit more
Oh, I
in
think it's
depth.
fantastic. There's so much space for what you're describing. And
Mm.
and not only that, but it's extremely valuable, I think. So I think you're going to have plenty of material to work on, and
Yeah,
it's
hope
fantastic.
so.
But you're
The
also
other thing,
bringing. Go ahead. Go
yeah,
ahead.
the other thing I've done is I actually uploaded a Malazan analysis video.
Yeah.
So since I've
Good.
started reading the Malazan Book of the Fallen, and it takes a lot of time to read this stuff,
Yeah,
it
it does.
has to feature on the channel one way or another.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
thought
Yeah.
I'd take the plunge and do my own analysis of yeah, Malazan. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's another thing that people will see more of, because there is no way around that. So
Yeah.
yeah, and otherwise I'm open for almost anything. I actually did a tag video. My last video is a tag video.
Yes. The warband
The
tag.
warband, yes, the
And
all
an
female
all female.
warband, yes.
Yeah. And pretty
Yeah,
scary too, actually. Yeah. I wouldn't want to
hope
be
so.
facing up to them. Yeah.
No, me neither. No, not in real life. No, thank you. As admirable as they are on the page, but no.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Well,
yeah,
you bring a lot of equipment to what you're describing too. You have an academic background,
yes, I do.
which we can talk about. You're a reformed academic, if we want
I'm a runaway academic. I'm a college
to.
dropout. That's what I am. Yeah, I have a PhD in comparative literature.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So you know how, I mean, you've gone through how to talk about books, how to analyze
Yeah,
books, and you're
yes, yeah.
bringing that to the table. So in what ways do you think, though, it's been an interesting thing for me to sort of figure
Mm.
out, because when I started my channel, one of my goals was to explore fantasy in a critical way, to
Yeah.
basically assert, hey, I think fantasy's a rich genre with lots of great works that are worthy of critical exploration.
Mm.
But I also, I didn't know much about BookTube or anything like that, but I quickly realized, okay, there's a whole culture here already of people who talk about books, and there's a certain way. There's things I had to learn, like what is a TBR and what is a tag, which you just did. So it was interesting for me to sort of figure out, and I just sort of blundered into it, to be honest. But how do I sort of bring what I want to do, which is perhaps coming from a slightly more academic background, but bring it into this environment in a way that it would, I hope, mesh well, and that would be sort of, I'm talking to people here as well as bringing what I want to do. So do you see what I mean? Is it?
Yeah, no, I think I understand what you mean. Yeah, I mean, I perhaps on one level it's a bit easier for me because you already are like a trailblazer in this more, let's say, academic corner of BookTube, you know? So it's not so hard then anymore to at least find a couple of people who do this already. But I think it's very hard to not have this sound like a seminar or a lecture, because ultimately YouTube is entertainment. And of course, even if we transport more academic content, we still want it to be something that's entertaining, of course. No? And I think this is a very fine line to get right. And I don't know if I get it right, actually, because I think it's far too early for me to know really kind of like, do I actually succeed in hitting that sweet spot, no, where it's kind of like informative and people might actually take something away from this, but also entertaining enough that people don't have this kind of like feeling, oh God, I'm sitting in a seminar room and okay, where's the off button here? No, I do get that.
And I do think that there is a thirst out there. There are a lot of people who want that slightly more analytical content, but as you say, it's still kind of this hybrid of academic and entertainment, which for me has been a lot of fun. It's actually been a lot of fun. And I have to say that I believe it's made me a more effective teacher as well, having gone through this, figuring out how to be more comfortable in front of a camera, and how to keep the analysis in what I'm doing, but at the same time make it accessible. And I think that's a great skill to have.
Definitely, because like you say, now there might be a huge thirst out there, but the people watching our videos, they might never have seen a college from the inside. No, we don't really know who those people are, what their backgrounds are. So like you say, it has to be accessible. No, you can't have too many, let's say, big words or jargon or anything like that, because it won't work. No, so it's interesting, but also it can be difficult at times. My very first videos that are not on my channel are so god awful.
Well, at least you were smart enough not to put them on the channel. You should see my first videos, which are so gloriously awkward. But I'm keeping them there as sort of a badge of honor, I guess.
I mean, my very first one, it ticks all the boxes. Nah? It's cringeworthy. I suck. The lightning sucks. I hadn't a clue how to turn off the autofocus on my camera, so it's really hyperactive at times. It has all those beginner mistakes, and but that's how it is. No, I mean. It's like learning a new craft, actually. No,
Really is.
starting making videos reminded me a lot like when I started or restarted oil painting. No, you make one mistake after another, and you sit there and you think to yourself, how did this even happen? Yeah, so it's the same process, no? So yeah.
Yeah,
And they
yeah, it
say
really
you
is.
need at least, like for painting, they say you need between 20 and 30 paintings before you actually have, how should I say, a sufficient command over your materials, no, and how to use them. And I get the feeling it's the same for YouTube videos.
I believe that you
So
are
yeah.
exactly correct in that case. Yeah. I'd love to talk a little bit about art too, since you are an artist. And I think there's lots of room on Fantasy BookTube to talk about the visual aspects of all of this. So
Yeah.
there are a few booktubers who like to talk about book covers and that sort of thing.
Yeah, that seems to be very popular at the moment. Like
Yeah.
my least liked book covers, or the worst book covers of all time, or the best book
Yeah.
covers of all time. Yeah, there's a
Yeah.
lot of that going around. Yeah.
But I think there's room for someone, perhaps a person with an academic background and an artistic background who's starting a channel, to talk in a little more depth about the relationship between the fantastic in art and the literature, and there's a lot of great art out there. There's not just what's on the book covers, but there's tons of great fan art. And
Oh yeah, there's tons of it. Yeah, and some
yeah,
is really really good. I mean, there's really
yeah,
great stuff out there. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. I don't know what form that could take, but it would be neat to have somebody maybe do, I don't know, I'm just thinking right off the top of my head here, but maybe like
Go ahead.
a
I mean,
history of fantasy art, or some just featuring with a particular, you could take one series like Malazan, for example, just looking at some of the great art of, and I don't know how that would work copyright wise, if you would be
yeah,
allowed.
I don't know either. I mean,
Yeah,
it depends, I suppose, where you get the art pieces.
yeah.
Like there is kind of like an art community server called DeviantArt,
Uh-huh.
and then you have to really individually look at what the artist stipulates. So there is copyright-free material there. Now,
Okay.
if it's exactly what you want and what you want to use is then a completely different question.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, you can find some copy-free fan art, definitely. Malazan, I think, is a very interesting case anyway, because Erickson wanted to be a visual artist. He wanted to be a
Right.
comic artist, no?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then decided, no, I'm a painter. I'm not a painter. I'm a writer. I write.
Yeah.
But I think it shows in his writing, because he has this really very compelling imagery sometimes that he comes up with, where I'm kind of like, does think, well, this is so visual. And I think it has to do with him having this kind of like, yeah, artist brain, and thinking about things probably in a very visual way as well.
Yeah. Yeah. You can really
Would
see
have to
that.
ask him. You could ask him actually next time around. If
Yeah.
he does, he
Oh, yeah.
visualize stuff when he writes. I'm sure he does. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because some people do and some don't. I tend to be much more visual when I write, for sure. But yeah, he's actually a pretty decent painter.
He is. Oh
Yeah,
yes. Oh yes.
yeah,
The paintings that we sometimes see in those Zoom calls you have with him.
yeah,
The
yeah.
last one, I think he had this woman kind of floating underwater
In
type
the
of, and
water. Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah,
and the perspective on that, whoa.
yeah,
So yeah,
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 yeah. It's quite good.
yeah,
It's very hard to paint water, I feel like, anyway.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm glad he became a writer and I don't have that competition.
I think we're all glad he decided to write. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
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 If yeah.
But yeah, so there's I feel like that's fertile territory, maybe, to talk about relationships between art and literature, and maybe there's a way of getting around copyright, because it would be a ton of work if you were going to feature people's art and to have to individually get permission.
Oh yeah, no,
Yeah.
no, I don't think that's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, also a lot of painters are avid readers, no? So
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, there's a whole community of artists out there who are very much woven into the writing community as well. So this is something I've seen more on Twitter than on YouTube, though, where on Twitter, and I'm not by any means very adept at Twitter, but I do dabble occasionally there. And
Right,
I've
yeah.
noticed that the whole fantasy writing community is very much mixed in with the artists who are, after all, they would love to, many of them, be able to make covers for some of the books and
Yeah.
sort of things.
Yeah, it's a big area of possible work, no?
Yeah.
To do cover art, yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. Well,
Yeah.
we'll see.
Well, we'll see if that develops into something.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, there's so many realms where that fantasy is related to. I mean, there's music and art, and of course the literature.
Yeah.
And these connections, they're things that can be explored more, for sure. But anyway, I'm very curious. My standard question remains about your literary journey. So we've already talked about the fact that you have an academic background, and in comparative
Yeah.
literature, which I think is wonderful.
Yes.
You I might even bother you to explain to people who might not know what exactly is comparative literature. Maybe we could talk about that first, and then we can go back to, little Angela, when you were just a little person learning how to read. What were some of the most important stories for you growing up, and as you got older, and even now, like what is your literary journey?
Yeah, okay. So first question, what is comparative literature?
Yeah.
So normally it involves that you are fluent in more than one language, so that you can compare works from different cultures, different languages. In my case, when I was a student, the two languages that I put down for my degree were English and French. So my native language is not English, so it would be German. And so I learned English in school and then studied English in university. And the second language then that I had to do for my degree was then French.
Wow. And just
it's a lot of...
Sorry to interrupt you, but I also want to point out that in addition to the fact that your first language is German and you learned English and French, you also speak Polish, I believe. Is that correct?
I do speak Polish as well, yeah, because on my mother's side, the family is from Poland originally. And as long as my grandparents were still alive, they were Polish speakers. So Polish was the language that was spoken in the home. So I grew up actually speaking Polish and German up to my 6 years old. I would have been immersed in both languages to equal amounts. Actually, I think in parts even more immersed in Polish than in German.
Wow.
So kind of like we would have been speaking Polish at home, and then outside of the home we would speak German then. So yeah.
That's fantastic. You must have a very complex brain. All those languages. Yeah.
Well, I mean, as a child, you don't do anything to pick up those languages. It just happens. They're there. The adults around you use them, so you communicate with those adults, so you use them.
Yeah.
So you don't have anything to do really to not get to a certain standard in the language. Yeah. But I remember when I was in school, then in secondary school, to learn English, which was around age 10 when in Germany students start with this foreign language. The concept of language learning totally eluded me. I hadn't a clue what they actually wanted me to do or what I was required to do in some respects. No?
Yeah.
Because up to that point, the language just happens. No? Learning vocabulary, grammar, what? No, it was really a bit of a shock to the system, actually. And I didn't get very good grades in English at first.
Really interesting. Yeah.
Oh yeah, my English grades were pretty dismal almost throughout all my school career. And I almost failed my last English exam, so that would then get me the Abitur that would qualify me for university. That almost went down the drain. Not quite,
So,
but it was.
so you decided to do comparative literature with
And I
English.
decided to study, nevertheless, comparative literature. Yes. How mad can you be?
Yeah.
And again, I mean, it's one of those degrees that has so many. It's so useful as well. No, I mean.
Yeah, well, I mean,
Arts degree, like, yeah. So
we make fun of ourselves for
yeah, we do a little
the
bit at least, but
utility of the practicality of what we're doing. But it really is actually useful when you think about it.
I think so too. I think it's highly undervalued, and also people have a little bit the wrong idea about the usefulness. No,
Yeah.
I mean, I was told throughout my whole time in university that people were saying to me, well, you never get a job with that. Never, ever. You never get a job with that.
Yeah.
And in the end, I kind of like managed to have, almost 30 years in full-time employment. No? So it's not true. You can get a job with it.
Yeah.
And not just academic jobs. I think outside academia, it's getting more and more that if you have an arts degree or a literature degree, I think you're not so badly off as people try to convince you.
Absolutely correct. There are so many people who have careers in completely unrelated realms.
Either completely unrelated things, or there are also loads of related things. No, I mean, even the whole social media aspect. No, I think there are lots of big companies who have social media managers who come with a literature degree.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's just, it equips you to think and to relate to people, to have empathy. And these are skills that are applicable just about in any realm, really.
Lots of transferable skills, kind of like, no? And like you say, you definitely learn to think. And I think you also learn to problem solve. And there are more and more people out there, I think, who value that. So,
which is a good thing.
Definitely.
So I interrupted you. You were explaining comparative literature.
So basically, you look at literature from different countries and look at either commonalities or differences, or if we look at for example, fantasy literature. No, you can look at fantasy literature from Germany and from America.
Oh, that sounds like fun.
Those can be lots of fun. And see, did they develop in the same way? Did they develop in different ways? And if so, why might that be the case? No?
So what was your special project? What was your dissertation on? What were you studying more?
My dissertation is on something that's not so comparative after all, because the university where I studied, the comparative literature department was very theoretical. So it was a lot of literary theory. And this is the area where my PhD is in as well. It looks at how do we actually, bring art and life together, and how do we make our everyday life and turn it into art, or make it more aesthetic and things like that. So that's what my PhD is about. And it has recently been a bit of a renaissance, that people actually have discovered what I've come up with. So there seems to be a gang out in Berlin at the Freie Universität Berlin who use it, and they're not from a literature background. Actually, they're mostly sociologists.
Interesting.
But they seem to use it to explain social media platforms like the one we're using at the moment.
Oh, how interesting. So that's a full circle thing, isn't it?
That's a total full circle thing, that the woman who wrote a book that's used to explain social media platforms, and a lot of questions I got when I was still doing conferences and things like that. How was I able to actually predict in my book that computers will play and online platforms will play a huge role in this? Because my PhD is from 1996, and like neither YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, they didn't exist at that time.
No, how
So I
interesting.
used as my examples actually online gaming platforms.
Wow. Huh. Sounds really interesting. You and Mr. Professor
Me and
Fireball,
me and Fireball should
you need to
meet.
get together. Yeah,
Yeah,
have a discussion on this.
yeah.
I believe
So
you
yeah.
might have some topics that you could delve into there. But that's really cool. And I wonder what these sociologists over in Berlin would say if they knew you had started a channel now on YouTube.
Probably what a lot of people around me say, because everybody I've told so far, oh, by the way, I started a YouTube channel, looks at me and says, what took you so long?
Yeah.
Why did you wait so long? Why didn't you do this ages ago? I thought you would start straight away as soon as YouTube was invented. So why did you have to wait so long?
Yeah. Do you know
So
the
most
answer?
people, no, I don't. I actually don't. Apart from all my lame excuses about, oh, I don't have the time for that.
Yeah.
No, I don't.
Well,
Maybe, but maybe one thing is that social media got a little bit a bad rap, no? So we have this idea it's all bad, and there are all those trolls out there and cyber mobbing and all this. And yeah, if you kind like yeah, have written a theory that deals with, at least in some parts, deals with this, maybe you have a bit more of an awareness what might happen. No? But I have to say that so far my experiences being on YouTube are fabulous, absolutely wonderful, really great community. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
Definitely.
It's a community which actually, to be honest with you, the percentage of people that I've encountered, that I've interacted with, who are just kind and generous is much higher than the percentage of people who are kind and generous out there in the real world, if you want to call it that. I'm of course completely biased when I say this, but I think that people who love books and reading just tend to be really cool. So
I hope so. As I'm one of them, yes, definitely. No, I would agree to a certain extent, because I think with our particular corner that we have carved out on YouTube, the, let's say, a little bit more analysis driven kind like BookTube channels, I think we have attracted really wonderful subscribers. Now I'm so thankful for anybody who has subscribed so far to the channel, that I'm kind of like, wow, because yeah, and the reception has been really super kind. People have been super helpful. Yourself, for example, now by putting my very first video onto your community tab, that will never ever be able to really express the thanks for that, because it really saved myself from lingering along with my first 3 subscribers, where I know every one of them. The same goes for Joanna. Joanna gave me an absolutely lovely shout out on her channel.
Yeah.
So yeah, lots of help, lots of encouragement. So yeah, really, really great.
Yeah, Joanna is a wonderful person.
Oh yeah, she's really,
talk about generous and kind people. Yeah, she's exhibit A on BookTube, in my opinion. So yeah, it's a really great community. And the Malazan community, a lot of them who hang out over on Iskar Jarak's Discord, I think they love seeing people talk about the series that they love. So it was just an easy thing to say, hey guys, there's this great new channel, you should check it out. And she's talking about Ian Esselmont's Night of Knives. So, and they're like, oh, let's go, and so it's just...
Oh yeah, and they came, I have to say. I mean, was a bit unreal, really, because I checked in maybe after 5 minutes just to make sure I did everything right, and the thing really uploaded and went live when it was supposed to go live, and everything was fine. I said, okay, fine. And then maybe after an hour, and I kind of went, what? 40 what views? Where are those people coming from? And then it dawned on me, okay, yeah, a certain somebody helped us along a little bit. But yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah, and it's great, because I think what we're all longing for is that sense of community is the enrichment that comes with our dialogue together about our reading journeys, our experiences in particular books that we love. I mean, when I read the Malazan Book of the Fallen the first time, I didn't know anything about BookTube at all. And
Right. Yeah.
you know, I didn't know people who, I didn't know anyone who had read it. I was looking to broaden my fantasy reading.
Yeah.
And so I basically went on to Google and typed best fantasy series or something like that, and came up with a bunch of lists and read about some of them. I thought, okay, this one sounds interesting. So I went and I read it, and it took probably a year or so to get through all 10 books. And when I finished, it was like, wow, this is mind blowing, and I can't talk about it with anyone. It was just, wow, you know, I don't know anyone who's read this. And I just feel like I need to talk about it with somebody, and there wasn't there for me that time. So having this is something I think that is cathartic for us in a way too, maybe.
Yeah, it's fabulous actually. No, I mean, I actually found Malazan through YouTube, no, and actually through one of your videos. The very first the very first video I ever watched of Philip Chase was this. I think it's one of your top 10 videos, the one where in the end Asselmond overtakes Tolkien, and this whole Tolkien baptized my imagination, and Asselmond set it free. And I heard the sentence, I was like, what? I actually had to watch this again, that I didn't mishear this, and was a bit kind of like, who says something like that on the internet first? And second, what's this Malazan thing he's on about? How can this be? I have never heard of this. And then I went off, and as well kind of like, no, went off, found the books, and eventually started reading, and was like, whoa.
Yeah, definitely.
But
Esselmont and Erickson, they created quite a world there, haven't they?
They have, I have to say, Asselmond is really probably my book find for this year so far.
Wonderful.
I'm really glad I picked up his series. The thing is now, if I wanted to read them in order, I have to wait until I made it through the Bone Hunters, until the next Asselmond slots in. And
it's probably worth doing that.
I'd say I probably will be, to kind of like really have understand what's going on and get the most out of it. But I'm only in the middle of Chain of Dogs, so
the House of Chains, right?
Yeah, House of Chains, so that's so I'm still a bit away from Bone Hunters. I'm sitting there and think, I want to read the next Asselmond, but
well, what could you do? I suppose you could
patience, come on.
There's
it's a good exercise to learn patience.
The one series you could read out of publication order, I think, and it would be okay, would be Esselmont's Path to Ascendancy.
Right.
Which is a prequel series. It's just basically explaining the founding of the Malazan Empire and that sort of thing. So, but then some fans would say, no, you can't read that until after you've read. Because you'll miss this Easter egg here, or
But I'm that terrible reader who reads kind of like totally out of order if I feel like it.
I do too.
So
So we're reading some cool stuff now, but before we talk about the cool stuff that you're reading now, I would like to get back to that question about your literary journey and
my literary journey.
You are what you read, right? So who are you?
I suppose so. Who am I? Okay. My literary journey starts when I was kind of like probably still in diapers, being read things like Grimm's fairy tales.
Oh, yes.
And I remember, I must have been a little bit older, maybe, I don't know, 3, 4, but I remember vividly also another fairy tale collection by Wilhelm Hauff. So he is more like, it's almost a little bit like retellings of the Arabian Nights stories that he did. So I remember those as well. And they're probably my very first exposure to any type of story and literature. Yeah, it was mostly my father actually who would kind of like read those stories then to me.
Okay.
So yeah, so a little bit like in your house where you have read to your daughter. So my dad got me into books, reading, things like that.
Yep.
And yeah, then when I was able to read by myself, the first book I actually read by myself was by Erich Kästner, Pünktchen and Anton, which is about two children in Berlin from very different social economic backgrounds. So Pünktchen, the little Dot, no, she is from a very upper class background with parents who are, well, neglectful because there are nannies and whatnot to look after the child. Why would we bother? No? And then we have Anton, who is from a working class background, and he is standing out on a bridge selling matches and buttons and things like that to kind of like make money and help his mother who's sick at home. No? So that was the first story I read by myself.
And
Erich
you
Kästner,
clearly remember it very, very well too. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I've reread this thing. That's yeah. The book was in the end falling apart almost because I was loving it so much. Erich Kästner has written stuff for adults as well, and still an author that I value a lot. So yeah. So that was the first book I read by myself. Other stories during that time was the Pippi Longstocking stories by Astrid Lindgren.
Yeah.
Which are then a bit more into the, we're getting into the fantasy here a little bit as well, no? Because Pippi Longstocking, her father is a pirate and she's living in this house by herself and she can deadlift her horse. I should have included her actually in my work band. So yeah, so I was reading those. Things like Jules Verne as well, no? His stories. Yeah, so that would be kind of like early reading and early fantasy reading.
Oh boy,
and I think I've always been drawn.
Yeah. Oh, it sounds like you had a rich childhood with all of these great books. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I'm lucky, I think, because I think I had adults around me, especially my father, but also my grandmother, who wouldn't necessarily, my grandmother wouldn't so much read to me. It was more like an oral cultural thing. But one of the memories I have is she had this thing where she could do out of, you know, those cloth handkerchiefs, the little bit bigger ones. And she would use them to make like little puppets out of them. No? So I remember a little rabbit and like a mouse, and it was like a puppet theater thing she would do that. No? So I remember that. And yeah, my father himself is very big into reading and loves reading. So and passed this on then, thankfully. But also I remember when we were going on walks in wooded areas or the forestry. By the way, when I was watching your Vermont video,
my
husband was looking over my shoulder and saying to me, "Oh, did your brother send you a video?" Because he thought this was where I grew up. Because if you Photoshop the lake out of that and that tower, then you basically where I grew up. So
wow, neat.
And when we were going for hikes and walks in those woods, and I was 4 or 5 or whatever, my father had all those stories when we came along big trees with roots coming out of them. They said, that's where the dwarfs are living. And so, yeah, so I got lots of stories and yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah, I was always on the lookout for elves when I was walking through the forest. So
I had a collection of stones, you know, those fool's gold, the pirate in stones, the whole collection that I had on the windowsill, hoping the dwarfs would come and collect them, because after all, they're looking for gold, aren't they? You know, so yeah.
Trying to entice them.
Yeah, exactly. Setting traps for dwarfs.
Yeah. Oh, how wonderful.
Yeah.
What a great
So and also my father introduced me very early to libraries. So we were kind of like going to the city library, because I mean, yeah, books are expensive. And if you have a young avid reader who kind of like just inhales them, I think we thought, okay, bring her to the library, let her loose in there. Wonderful. And I remember when I think I was 9, I thought, okay, I want a library card in my own name.
Uh-huh.
And I kind of like watched a little bit people coming into the library, going to the librarian's desk and filling in the forms, no? And then going out with their library card. And I said, okay, that's what I want. So I marched up to the desk and said, I want a library card. And the librarian looks at me and says, no, you're a child. We don't give library cards to children. And I'm like,
Oh,
but you have children's books, don't you? So I want a library card.
yeah.
And I hope I made a good argument, but I think I was just so obnoxious that in the end she gave in. But I
But
mean,
you got a library
one
card.
of her arguments was, for example, but your father has a library card, so you have your parents, no? And you can borrow with your parents. And no, I wasn't having any of it. But no, I need my own library card.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I got my library card. I mean, my father still had to co-sign it, but I filled in the form, I signed it, and I got the card with my own name on it. So yeah.
Good for you. I think
Yeah.
that says a lot about your personality, doesn't it? That you,
So yeah, that was
you got that library card. It's interesting because these days the kids do get their own, at least here, they get their own library card.
right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
But my daughter always forgets hers, and I have to use mine anyway. So, but she was like you, both of them. You know, we'd go to the library, and she'd come out ready to check out her books with this big pile of books that looks
Yeah.
like our TBR video. You know, thumbnails, these big piles of books, and the person at the desk would be like, you know, that's a lot of books. Are you going to read all those? And she would be like, I'll have them done in like 3 days, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah.
Sounds very familiar.
Yep.
Yeah. So yeah, so that was one of those important milestones for me to get my own library card. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Wonderful. So
Yeah.
from there, what about teenage Angela?
Teenage Angela would have discovered Tolkien eventually. I think I might have been, I don't know, 13, 14 when I found Tolkien. And I found Tolkien through a classmate because he was reading it. And I was, as I said already, like with English, I had other subjects where I wasn't so hot. Math was one of them. And I had a good network of people where I traded either artwork, kind of like from art classes, because I mean, it's a bummer if you have a wonderful GPA and it nosedives because you don't know which way to hold a pencil. So I either would trade artwork against math homework or things like German essays, biology thing. Biology was another subject I really loved and was really good in. So I had this network of mostly male classmates who were very good at mathematics, but crap in other parts. And they would provide my math homework and I would trade for something else, whatever they were needing.
Didn't the art teacher ever wonder how suddenly all these students produce such great art? Wouldn't they?
I have no idea. I'm sure if the art teacher was at least a little bit clever that he would have copped onto this. I had more problems with one particular art teacher that he constantly accused me that the art I handed up, that I didn't do this myself. I was dragged off to the principal's office ever so often.
That's kind of a compliment in a way, though, isn't it?
Because he thought somebody else must have drawn this or painted this. So yeah, that was more my problem with my arts teacher.
It is a weird sort of compliment, though, isn't it?
It is a weird compliment, yeah. In hindsight, I mean, at the time, I didn't really appreciate this, but in hindsight, I also would acknowledge, yeah, it is probably a bummer when you might have wanted to be a working artist yourself, but it didn't happen and you became an arts teacher instead.
Yeah.
And you have this kind of like slightly obnoxious 14-year-old sitting in your class that outperforms you. It must be so awful. That must be really, really weird. Yeah. So
yeah, I would imagine.
Yeah. But this is how I found Tolkien, because one of those guys, he was reading Tolkien and I was like, oh, what's this? What are you reading there? No? And so I went then to the library and got Tolkien, and yeah, just never looked back. Was wonderful.
Yeah, he opened the door, didn't he? Yeah. Wow.
But I mean, I read, so my first go at Tolkien was still in translation. So I read this in German. and then reread it when I was in university, that I reread then Tolkien in English. Also, I hadn't read The Hobbit because all those kind of like, how shall I say, classical English children's story didn't really play a role in my childhood. So The Hobbit didn't feature. So I didn't know about Tolkien. So my first introduction to Tolkien was actually Lord of the Rings and not The Hobbit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're all translated into German, of course, but yeah.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, of course. Yeah. Yeah. And also the edition I got from the library was a 1-volume one. So not like today where it's in 3 different volumes, but everything together in 1 volume.
Which would have pleased Tolkien, who thought of it as one story.
He would have been delighted probably. Yeah. And so I only encountered The Hobbit. I might have been 19, 20 almost, when I was already in university studying for my degree and rereading Tolkien, and then thought, okay, let's see what this guy has, what other stuff has this guy written. And of course there are shelves, so I read The Hobbit, The Silmarillion, Children of Húrin, and so I made my way through the Tolkien collection. But that was really, I think, like for you, very, very influential to kind of like find Tolkien and read that story, because I still think it's one of the great fantasy stories that's out there. That's definitely.
You won't hear me disagree with that.
Yeah. So a little bit later, I think I was already during that time we had lots of texts that we of course had to read for school. The ones for English class I was not really into, I have to say. The only thing I really really found interesting was, for example, Shakespeare. I loved Shakespeare.
Oh, neat.
And was totally devastated that we were only reading Macbeth, because I have so many wonderful Shakespeare plays. Why that one? But I also remember we had to read Lord of the Flies, which really, seriously?
Kind of a brutal book.
Very cruel book. Very cruel book. So the school reading wasn't really my cup of tea at all. But it also kind of like the closer I came to kind of like the end of my school career, because then grades suddenly actually really start to matter. The less time you then have also to read other stuff. So I think I wasn't reading that much fantasy during that time, really. But then, as I said, so during my first university years, I actually rediscovered fantasy big time, actually, like by rereading Tolkien. But also I was extremely lucky, because when I was a student, fantasy courses like the one that you have created for your own college, they weren't around as such.
Right.
But I was lucky because when I was in second year, we had a visiting professor from Heidelberg, who he's one of those people who have degrees in very different areas. So the professorship he had in Heidelberg was for psychology. And but he also had a degree in literature. So when he was visiting professor at my university, he offered a seminar on, he didn't call it fantasy, he called it utopias. And
slightly more respectable, I guess.
So psychological ideas that infuse the characters and how humans are seen in some of those utopias. And I enrolled in that course, and it was mind-blowing. And I still think it was probably one of the best courses that were on offer during that time.
Wow.
I remember the very first meeting we had, it was completely oversubscribed. There were probably 60 people crammed into the room.
Wow.
And I remember him coming in, looking around and saying to us, I like my students to be active participants. And the first active thing you can do is actually leave. and some were really offended, packed their bags and left. And I was just thinking, yeah, well, you have to do more to make me leave here. No, not going to happen. It also came with an insane reading list. I think we read around 2,000 pages from one week to the next to just get through the primary text.
That's like a graduate course. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, this is almost 40 years ago. And during that time, German universities were very different from today. There were no BA courses. So my first degree is actually an MA. Of course, BA's courses were only introduced with the Bologna reforms around 2000. Before that, no BA degrees in German universities. So I enrolled in an MA program. Where I had one major and two minor subjects. So my major was comparative literature, then my minor was English, and the other minor was psychology.
Oh, neat. Oh, psychology too. Okay.
Oh, yeah. So that was my subject combination. And unlike in British universities where you drop at least one subject, we had to do all three subjects for 4 years. So through the whole course.
Wow.
Yeah, wow, exactly. And yeah, some of the reading assignments, today's students would not be happy. You would not get away with that. No, definitely not. No. But what I found in this course was, for example, Ursula Le Guin.
Oh, yes.
Still totally love. No? So we read The Dispossessed and the short stories, The Ones Who Left Omelas. No? Yep. So we read those two. For most of these kind of like classes, we had like at least two texts in kind of like tandem, so to say. So another tandem would have been Thoreau, Walden, and then by the psychologist and behaviorist Skinner, he wrote a novel called Walden too. No? So those two together, then lots of pairings like that.
So you have a dialogue going on between these readers.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, or Huxley's Brave New World, but also Island. No. Yeah. So and yeah, that sparked really new interest in kind of like fantasy and reading fantasy for me. Yeah.
It's a really cool thing how that happens to people sometimes. I think it often happens around that age, but something just sparks something inside. And it becomes a lifelong passion. And that's what learning was like for me. I loved being a student and finding these passions. I know that a lot of people are critical, for example, of Joseph Campbell today, but when I first started reading The Hero with a Thousand Faces as a probably 17-year-old, you know, I was like, wow, this is so cool. There's a whole world of stuff.
Exactly. As if a door opens, no, and suddenly you see all those things and like, yes, no,
and it's hard.
And that was a little bit for me like that as well. No, that suddenly a door had opened and I was like, oh yeah,
and it's a wonderful thing, and it carries through your entire life afterwards. These passions that are awakened. And I think the ones that maybe it's that age too, but it's a very formative period, isn't it?
I think so. Yeah, I think kind like you're not so at home anymore. No, you might have moved out to attend university. You try to figure out who you really are, what you want to do with your life. Not that I did figure that out. That took me a long while. But yeah, you're right. I think it's this very formative age where you're trying to kind of like, make your first step into a wider world and actually, where would I slot in there? No?
Yeah. So it's a bit like being in your own fantasy adventure. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we are our own hero who.
Yeah. On a quest that never really ends. Yeah.
No. Which is a good thing, I think. But yeah.
I think so. Yeah, I think the best.
Also, a bit like you, man. You said you really liked learning, and I, as much as I didn't like school in some respects, university was a really game changer, and I really loved learning and kind of also I wasn't as lucky as you. It wasn't kind of like without grades at all, but there
Oh,
were much less graded assessments than there are today. So basically only the introductory courses at the beginning were kind of like where you had end of year exams that then would be graded. And then at the end again, when you were kind of like handing up your MA thesis and would sit then the written exams for your MA, they would be graded as well. So you could request in between that your student work would be graded, but I mean, who in their right mind is that you don't have to get a grade, who would ask for, I want a grade on that? So I most of the time just didn't bother to ask for a grade.
Good, because
Also,
I think
yeah.
it's grades more often than not, I feel, inhibit learning.
Yeah, also we had much more freedom. Like today, there were no set essay topics, for example. No? So if you had to hand up an essay, you had to come up with your own essay topic. You had to go to the professor and say, this is what I want to write my essay about. And they would say, yeah, okay, fine, sure. And you would arrange a deadline and then squirrel off, do the work and hand it up. No?
Yep.
So it wasn't that... it was much less structured on one level, no, but also I think, I certainly definitely like that much more than having to do all the set pieces, so to say.
Yeah, no, my whole senior year at that college, the Evergreen State College, where there were no grades, no grades, and most courses were not segregated. You would have courses taught by a biology professor and a sociology professor and maybe a literature professor, and they would all come together. So there's a lot of that. But my whole senior year was self-guided. It was just me meeting with my professor once a week and telling him, this is what I've done, and here's an essay I wrote, and this is what I think I want to do next week. And he said, great, go for it. And I got to know him very well. He became a very important mentor for me. And it was just fantastic. I loved every moment of it. So, and there's a degree to which I think having the responsibility for organizing your learning on your own shoulders is conducive to learning more deeply as well.
Yeah, and also kind of like when we said earlier, finding who you are, so you have to figure out, how do I actually learn? What learning skills do I have, or what do I lack? And how will I get them? So definitely, yeah.
And with just a little bit of mentorship and guidance, just a bit of nudge here. Oh, you might want to check out these books because they're related to what you're doing, and that sort of thing. And it was just wonderful. I loved it.
Yeah, and then the bean counters took over education and wanted measurable results.
Oh my goodness, data. I hear data in my ears constantly now, and it's the people in suits are trying to corporatize education, and it's so sad what it's doing. It's really sad how it's squeezing the learning out of education is what they're doing by corporatizing it.
Which was, I think, one of the reasons why in the end I couldn't do that anymore. I just couldn't do that anymore. I mean, I was so I did my PhD and then had an academic career, for a better word. And at the end, I don't know, the university where I was at, we had a huge restructuring program going on where the whole first year structure was altered. And I wasn't in favor of it because I don't think that it was profitable to the students as such. It also had fallout where certain introductory courses had to be scrapped to free up the credits then for this new structure. So there were downsides as well. But I found myself to a certain part then in a position where I was asked to pilot certain things, implement certain things. I was part of a kind of like quality control committee. And I had one day where I was taking the train to work, where I was coming home and thinking to myself, what am I actually doing there? I'm implementing a program which I do not believe in. No. And yeah, no, so at some stage this didn't come together really anymore. We had other problems as well. There were kind of like bullying problems going around in the department and things like that. So it
Sounds
was,
so familiar. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I was still lucky and so forth that I wasn't directly affected by the bullying. But I mean, if you have colleagues who come and say such and such a person did such and such a thing to me, yeah, no. And I remember coming home and saying to my husband, you know what, if I have to do this another 15 years before I actually get near to a pension, I'm dead. I can't do that.
Yeah.
And his very wise and simple answer was, then stop doing it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, that's nicely said and sounds fabulous, no? But we would, first of all, what do I do instead? Second, where's the second income going?
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it sounds wonderful. So from that moment where I really thought, yeah, okay, I pack it in. It took another 2 years before I then really was out of that. Yeah. So, but yeah.
Yeah, it's frustrating because I
frustrating.
love teaching. I love it. I love the interactions with my students.
Same here. Yeah.
I love learning from them. And it's just such a joy. One of the greatest things in my life is when a student says to me, thank you. I didn't used to like reading very much, but after this course, I'm really actually excited to do more reading. And you know, that makes me feel alive, you know, and that's the best thing. And I just wish there were fewer things getting in the way of that, because it feels like there's more and more stuff coming from the bureaucracy that is encroaching on this wonderful thing that we do in the classroom.
Yeah.
Please let us do our teaching. Leave us alone, you know?
Yeah, it's the same here. Like my husband as well. So he would have had a similar job to yours. So he would have been chairperson over here. They call them head of department. In what is the Irish version of the community college.
Yep.
And his big kind like regret all the time is that the only promotion I can get is out of the classroom.
Yep.
So the higher up I go, the academic ladder, so to say, not the less face time with students I will have.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I won't do it, you know, and I don't know if anyone would want me anyway, but I would never go anywhere, not a level above what I'm doing now, which is being the chairperson of my department, which is a privilege. I have some wonderful people that I work with, the faculty in my department. And I like that, and I still teach. So that's very important to me. And I cannot imagine myself not being in a classroom. And it just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, exactly. No, there would be something very wrong about this, because can you call yourself an educator if you don't see a classroom from the inside anymore? No? And
that's not me. I don't have that ambition at all. But yeah, it is sad, but we're still on your literary
on the journey. It's a long journey.
It's a good journey.
Yeah. So during that time then in university, I discovered authors like Gamel, for example. Legend, I think, came out in the, I don't know, later 80s, 84, 85, something like that. Maybe something like that. So but I remember, well, actually, I didn't remember until recently that I must have read this, because I was in the bookshop and thought, oh yeah, Gamble, that's coming up a lot, and got it off the shelf and read the blurb and thought, I know that book.
I've read this. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I've read this. Yeah. So I reckon it was around that time that I read him, for example. No?
Yeah.
So yeah, and then a little bit like what you described in a video as well happened. I started my PhD and my reading time went really down. Yeah.
Ironically,
big time. No? So, and also, yeah, even if you have some spare time, no, if you are lucky enough to have a couple of hours here and there, you might not want to read another book, but rather be somewhere outside where there is fresh air, sunshine, greenery, you know.
Yep.
So yeah, I didn't read much during that time. So I finished my PhD with, as I said, really just very little reading in general.
Reading for pleasure, we should clarify, because you were
reading
reading
for pleasure. Yeah,
you were
exactly.
reading
Yeah,
all
you're
kinds
reading.
of theory
Yeah,
and, you know, other things. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. So yeah, reading for my personal enjoyment was
Yeah.
just not on the agenda.
Yeah.
And after that, like in Germany, you have to write a second thesis. So you write your PhD, but if you want to become a full professor, you need to write a second thesis.
Oh, wow. So that's
Oh,
like
yeah.
publish or perish, or something like that.
Totally. Oh, totally. So I started on my second thesis. And at that stage, I was on a grant scheme at that time. But Germany got reunited, and the German government changed. There was little to no money, and lots of money had to go, of course, into the East. No? So it had to come from somewhere. Yeah, so there was, I couldn't get, how shall I say, follow-up funding for my project.
Wow.
So I needed a job. And there weren't many jobs in German universities either, because whenever kind like a professorship was becoming free, it might either be, they kind like just X'd a lot of them, as long as there was one full-time, fully tenured professor who could then ensure that especially all the exams and everything would be taken care of. No, so they really shrunk departments during that time as well. Yeah, so I needed a job.
So that was terrible timing for you.
Yeah, in a way, but in other respects not, because I found a job, but not in Germany, but in Ireland. So this is how I came to Ireland. And the job I got was at first not in a university, but as I say, in the Irish equivalent of the community college. So I was teaching for 2 years in that community college at first, and then moved to another one. And then kind of like from there back into the university system. But also, yeah, like you kind of like met your wife in Nepal. I met my husband in Ireland and decided to miss the boat home, and I'm still here now. So yeah. But I mean, during that time, I wouldn't have done, again, no, you do not read that much because you need to adjust to a different culture. No, you need to kind of like figure out, how do I finance myself? No, because the college where I started out, it was kind of like very clear from the start that I wouldn't have a full-time job for me. No, so I had to find something else. So yeah, so you take care of all those things. No, so yeah.
Those are all necessary. But now that you are no longer an academic, you've succeeded.
Yeah, I started watching BookTube, discovering Malazan, and yeah, here we are.
Here we are, and you've done a review of a John Gwynne book. You've started reading some Mark Lawrence, I believe.
Yes, I'm reading Mark Lawrence as well. Yeah. Which I presume maybe in 2 weeks or so will be a review as well of the first one. Yeah. So
good. Yeah. In fact, we are going to have a discussion on Book of the Ancestor.
I think we could say we body reading Mark Lawrence. Yeah.
Yes, which is fun. So that's going to be a great, I think, trilogy for us to talk about when we get there.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the first book a lot. My review is out already, but
I know.
Very curious to hear your thoughts. And of course, when we do our discussion together, we'll probably start out with no spoilers, but then get right into the
we need to. We really need to. Yes, definitely.
We're gonna get eyeballs deep into the spoilers when we get there. So So great. Yeah. Any other authors that you really want to cover or read for your channel?
Let me see. Yeah, when you were saying, well, like during that time where I wasn't reading a lot, but what I did discover was urban fantasy. So I've read quite a bit of urban fantasy as well, and like Aronovich is one of the authors I really, really like. Or Ben Yaka would be another one, kind of like more urban fantasy type of things. So
Cool.
yeah, I read very diverse, kind of like from high fantasy to whatever comes my way.
Yeah.
I'm an equal opportunity reader. If you're a book, I read you. If you're a
Good.
good book, I really read you. So yeah,
That's wonderful.
yeah,
Have you read N.K. Jemisin yet?
I have actually. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
on somewhere behind me. Where is
I
up
think you
there?
actually mentioned Broken
Broken
Earth.
Earth. Yeah, yeah, Broken Earth. Yeah.
Yeah.
I read
So,
Broken Earth from her. I have on my shelf, but haven't read it yet. The City We Became.
yeah. I'm curious. I
But
haven't read that either, but I'm
yeah,
curious about
yeah.
it.
So
Yeah.
that's
I
still
live I live near New York, so yeah, I think that would be fun.
yeah, yeah, almost required reading then.
Yeah, should be.
Yeah,
Yeah, because I
yeah.
love her Broken Earth trilogy. I think it's just brilliant.
Mm.
I read it shortly before starting the channel, so I haven't reviewed it for the channel, but I do have a discussion with my older daughter on
Okay.
the Broken Earth trilogy. It was one of the first few videos that I
Mm.
made. So that was kind of cool because I didn't know that this was actually a good idea. I just thought, let's talk about all the fantasies that I think are great. So I started out with this best of fantasy series, which turned out to be actually not a bad way to start a YouTube channel. So
Well, and also to start a video, I really envy you this kind like opening sentence. Now, welcome to the best of fantasy.
yeah, sort of.
Yes. Ah,
It's a little
Sam.
bit cheesy, but I sort of lean on the
Yeah,
cheese
you
here.
pull it off. Come on, you
Yeah,
pull it off.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. It's fun. I have fun with all of this. So yeah,
yeah.
hopefully people don't take me too seriously when I do things like that. But I did. There is a serious part of that, which is I am on this continuous quest to find great reads that
Yeah.
really speak to me and I feel would speak to lots of other people. So that's
And I
that's
think
fun.
it's essential that one is passionate about what one reads, kind of like, because if you want to talk, and this goes back almost to the beginning of our talk, no? If you talk in front of a camera,
Yeah,
you really kind of like have to find that passion and be passionate about what you want to talk about, because otherwise you look so lifeless, no? It's so awful.
it's so
No, so
true.
yeah, so you better are really into what you're doing, no? So yeah.
Yeah, yeah. If you want to see somebody looking like a a corpse trying to speak, just watch my first video, and you'll see how lifeless. And I thought I was being, just normal, and but yeah, it's pretty awful to have to watch somebody be, very boring.
As I say, I've been there. I watched back my first 2-3 videos and I thought, if I would find this on YouTube, I would never ever watch anything again by that one. No way, no.
Yeah.
Yeah, I also thought then it would be so much easier to have somebody to talk to. So I fully understand that you kind of like roped your daughter into this and said, let's sit down and talk about the books we love. No?
I
So yeah,
did. Yeah, my daughters
yeah,
have been great. Both of them have appeared on the channel several times. And so, yeah, my older one for Broken Earth. And we had a discussion about how I read to her when she was little.
yeah, I watched that. Yeah, so I know
Yeah,
that,
so that was fun. And then my younger one has talked on the channel with me about Harry Potter and Percy
Okay,
Jackson and
okay, yeah.
yeah. So they both appeared in videos, and they're very wonderful and sweet for doing that. And then I had a couple of students of mine too, or in the earlier days of the channel. Some of my students who had been in my fantasy novels class have
Yeah, okay.
appeared in videos. One to talk about Patrick Rothfuss's King Killer Chronicle, which was very popular in my fantasy novels class. That's a book that a lot of people just loved.
Mm.
So the first book, The Name of the Wind.
Yeah, okay.
And another one who came on to tell me about video games. He had been in my
Right.
actually he had been in a few of my classes, and as somebody who doesn't play video games, because I know I would be addicted to them, I don't know a ton
I
about
think
them.
they can be a good way to lose a lot of time. Yeah.
Oh yes, yes. I wouldn't have time to write or make videos or anything else. So, but yeah, he educated me about storytelling in video games, which is really quite sophisticated. There are some wonderful stories being told in video games that are also, of course, the player is engaging in the story, is creating the story to some degree as they're playing the game. So he really did a wonderful job of teaching me, and then he tried to teach me to play a video game, Witcher 3, which
Okay. Yeah.
by the end, I was able to sort of walk in a sort of straight line. Once I figured out the controls.
I think I know what I'm doing when we're finished here. I need to find that video.
Oh no.
Oh yes.
It's pretty awful. It's pretty embarrassing, actually. But yeah, he taught me to play, and I did walk away with an appreciation of storytelling.
Yeah.
There are so many. That's
video games, I would say, are probably also one of the biggest job markets for visual artists. No.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And
so yeah,
very popular on YouTube. I mean, our little tiny corner of YouTube, BookTube.
Oh yeah, we don't exist really.
Peanuts compared to the video game.
Peanut. I mean, when I started the channel, I watched a lot of how-to videos, no? And I stumbled across one of them, kind of like how to get your first subscribers or something. And the guy comes and he has a dried pea that he holds up and he says, "This is you." And then he's in this kind of like rather biggish studio where he is filming this. And then he kind of like says, "Okay, I'll be hiding this piece somewhere here." And so he puts it somewhere in the studio and he says, if you can still see the pea, let me know in the comments. And of course, there's no way, you have no idea where that pea has vanished to. No? And he said, "So this is you on YouTube. No? So you're just invisible, you're gone."
Yeah.
And then in the end, he kind of like goes
encouraging.
to health behind him as well, and he goes there and they're like, "Look, there's the pea."
Oh my.
Yeah, okay, thank you. I needed that illustration to really feel low now. So yeah.
Wow, yeah. I mean, that sounds very anxiety producing. Actually.
I think that's the. You know what? Okay, we need subscribers because otherwise we wouldn't have the channel. No, and I'm really, really super grateful to anybody who has subscribed, will subscribe to my channel. It's really great because, I mean, it's very easy to subscribe and unsubscribe, but also, to put that trust into a creator, that they will produce something that somebody else will enjoy watching and will want to watch again and again and whatever they put out. No, so I'm extremely grateful for that. But on the other hand, I think we all have our own kind of like journey on YouTube, how we got there, how it will progress, and yeah, subscriber numbers are just one teeny weeny bit of that. No, I have actually, because I mean, like we said before, the community, it sounds like you're saying that sounds so cheesy, and everybody says, "Oh yeah, I do it for the community." But I have to say, the thing that really is the best thing about my channel is my comment section.
Yes.
Yeah. If somebody leaves a comment, no matter how small or whatever, I have this big fat grin on my face. Yes, somebody has left a comment. Because I think this is where the interaction actually happens. Not because up to that point, I can be here in my corner, film my video, and I put it out there, but it's kind of like it's going into this vast black hole, no? And I don't know what will come back. But as soon as you get some type of reaction, then and I think that's what it really is about. At least for me, that's what it really is about. Not to kind of have that interaction a little bit and not just I mean, numbers, I mean, as we established that me and numbers, we don't go together. We're not friends. So
Yeah. It's kind of ironic too, because I'm like you, the engagement is very important to me.
yeah,
And I'm
yeah,
still at a point where I reply to everyone pretty much who leaves an initial comment on my videos, which has gotten obviously harder and harder to do
yeah.
as the channel has been growing. So, but yeah, I make an effort to, if somebody leaves a comment, unless it's a comment that's, I'm just like, I'm sorry, I don't understand what this is, or if it's something that's just mean and nasty, then, you know, maybe I'll engage with somebody who's being negative, but in a respectful way. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But I don't want to engage with somebody who's being a troll. You know, those are the exceptions. But I try to reply to everybody who leaves a comment because they're so important to me and so meaningful. And that's the lifeblood of the channel, really. Because as you say, I put this thing out into the world and it's sterile until somebody reacts to it. A bit like writing, really. You have this story
Yeah.
lives in here and you try to put it on a page, and then it comes alive when someone else reads those words and the story happens in their minds. So it's very similar, I think, because that it's the interaction that gives this life. And so I'm very grateful for that. But it's ironic.
Yeah, but it's also a very different interaction. No? If I put my paintings out there, now
Yeah.
I can actually meet people who look at them. No? If they're in an exhibition or whatever, I can kind of like see people looking at them. I can talk to those people directly. No, whereas here it's a very, yeah, almost filtered type of interaction, no? Which is yeah, for me at least, I'm still getting used to kind of like, what do I actually do with that type, or how do I relate to that type of interaction in some respects? So yeah.
Yeah, interesting.
My comment section is still so small. I can easily, very easily reply to every comment. And the trolls haven't found me yet. I'm too small for that. It's good to be that little shriveled pea.
Well, that's just it. I think there are advantages to having a comfortable, cozy channel where the people who are there are your friends and they're friendly and they want to interact with you for all the right reasons.
Definitely, yeah.
And as the channels get bigger, I almost feel, I hope it doesn't sound patronizing or anything, but I almost feel sorry for the people with really big channels, because they, number one, are likely to experience all kinds of pressure because it's probably going to be their main source of income.
Yeah.
So there are certain videos they can't make, or they feel they can't make because they'll maybe they even want to make, but it'll destroy their algorithm. And so they have to stay away from certain, like, reviews are becoming less and less common on BookTube because they're not as watched, they're not as heavily viewed. So people who are concerned about their algorithm are staying away from reviews, which is sad to me. But you know, and so bigger channels, they have more restrictions on themselves in a way. And the other sad thing to me is, if you watch one of the bigger channels, they put out a video, there are thousands of comments right in the first 10 minutes, you know, and people don't even watch the video and they put out comments, and, you know, it's just comments. And as the creator, you can't read all those. You can't interact with all those lovely people who are putting comments out there for you. And so the best you can do is kind of like maybe put your little heart symbol on, you know, 100 or, you know, 150 of them, and maybe reply to a handful. And for me, that's kind of, I would miss the ability to interact one-on-one with my viewers in that case. But
but on the other hand, I think BookTube is not a get-rich scheme. Like, I mean, we're not getting rich fast. Like, no.
No.
If I wanted that, I would have to be. I actually know somebody who, like myself, was a visual artist. And last time I met him, I said, so well, how's your art going? And he says, I more or less have retired, because he said the last exhibition he didn't really go well. He was looking around thinking, oh, what am I doing here? And it was like video installation thing that he did. And so he thought, I put it up on YouTube because at least then it has some type of life still.
Yeah.
And one part of this video installation was filmed in a cave system here in Ireland. And it's just kind of like you just see a drop falling, blop, blop, blop. And he said he got a comment by a viewer in America. And she told him, I'm in a cancer ward. I'm in one of those isolation rooms. I can't sleep. I'm kind of like going nuts in here. But I found your video and this kind of like drop, no, blah, blah. That was wonderful for me. Do more. So he's doing ASMR videos now where he puts a camera somewhere for an hour, lets it record. And then some of them have visuals, but a lot of them are just black screens. You just hear the sounds of whatever the camera recorded.
Yeah.
And he gets in excess of 50 million views.
Wow.
That's his income. He puts his 2 kids through college with that.
Huh.
Yeah, we're totally in the wrong place of YouTube.
Well,
Yeah.
My mind is blown right now.
Yeah. Especially, I think you still have one daughter who might want college. So
yeah.
No, yeah.
So time to start another channel, Angela.
Yeah, have another channel, ASMR videos. Yes.
Yeah.
So
I did. Once I had a commenter tell me, you have a great ASMR voice, which I took to mean maybe I'm boring, but yeah.
No, I think your vocal cords might be worth money, so start going.
So yeah, I don't know if I was
Yeah.
putting her to sleep or what, but anyway.
Yeah, but this is what some people actually want, no? I mean, if you have really pronounced insomnia and you haven't fully slept for weeks and weeks, no, and you suddenly find this voice that, no, you have this 5 minutes in your ears and you're gone. That's bliss, no? That's what those people are on the lookout for. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know how much of that is just how many people have put out videos though with something like a drop plopping for an hour and nobody notices, whereas your friend,
yeah, he was
somehow got, I don't want to say lucky or whatever, but somehow it was lucky in a way, because that probably wasn't his intention.
No, it was not at all. No, he thought I create some weird art channel that nobody will watch, or just a select few who are into this type of kind of like very conceptual performance art or whatever. No, but yeah, totally not.
That is so wild.
Yeah, it's totally wild. Yeah.
Wow.
But also it shows like what we're saying. Artists or people with literature degrees, yeah, we're very nifty, we're very flexible. No, we can come up with solutions to stuff we didn't even know we need solutions for. So yeah,
we're like survivalists, aren't we?
Yes, we are. Yeah. Survivalists of the mind.
Exactly, a little less rugged, but you know, a type of survivalist, I suppose.
Yeah, well, it can be rough as well. Come on, let's be honest here. It can be rough, but yeah. When you were saying earlier about yeah, kind of like putting your videos out and putting your writing out there, are you influenced by I'm sure you're influenced by kind of like the books you read when you write?
Sure.
Are there other influences you have? Kind of like, would you say there is other stuff that kind of like influences you, or that where you get ideas from?
Yeah. Oh, definitely. So travel is the big one that I like to talk about. Yeah. I mean, the places that I've lived are a part of my imagination, you know. So obviously books, you know, I can talk forever about what books have informed my writing. You know, going back to Tolkien and Le Guin in the earlier days, but then later George Martin and Joe Abercrombie, and then later still Malazan, and just I can go on and on about those. But yeah, so traveling, and I've talked about it before, but I lived in Germany when I was a kid, and certainly that landscape is, you know, part of this. And I feel
especially as we found out some parts look like Vermont.
Exactly. I mean, I do actually, I recognize exactly what you're saying, because I've lived in Germany. So although the second time I lived in Bavaria, which is much more mountainous, I mean the Alps and all
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
But still, yeah, it's a place that fed my early imagination, and I've lived
I
all
think
over.
actually we grew up like the first time when you were in Germany, we were like, I mean, 2.5 hour drive apart from each
Yeah,
other.
I was in Bad
So
Hersfeld. Yeah,
yeah, I actually have from my father's side relatives near Bad Hersfeld. And I remember on the way to them driving past that army barracks.
mm,
So
yeah.
not knowing that
I
certain
wonder if it's
somebody
still
was,
there. I wonder if it's still there. I remember very
I think it
distinctly.
has been decommissioned. I think they have left because since the reunification,
Yeah.
it more or less lost its purpose, no?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it was actually very close to the Iron Curtain.
Yeah, yeah,
In fact,
yeah,
so
very
we lived
close.
very close to that, and that was back in the 70s.
Mm,
But yeah, that was just part of who I am for sure,
mm,
but also going to Nepal, as I've mentioned, was a really key moment in my life for so many reasons. But
mm.
in terms of expanding me as a human being, I think it was just a very, very uh, breathtakingly wonderful experience, and challenging at times too. It is challenging to have your worldview suddenly,
Oh yeah, yeah.
called into question, and realize, oh, this is how these people see this thing differently from
Mm,
the way I do, and
yeah,
a lot of
definitely. Oh yeah, yeah.
things from that perspective, and to realize that there are other ways of seeing the world that are beautiful and that you can learn from.
Yeah, and other ways to do things, and it still will
Yeah.
work. No, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So it was wonderful. I just had a tremendous time there. And I would say that without that experience, there's no way I could have written the books that I've written.
Mm.
They absolutely owe their spirit to that experience. So yeah, in a fantasy world, but yeah, I would say that they're key to what I was thinking about as I was writing.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, and other than travel, I'm inspired by nature, and I love
Mm.
hiking. I love
Okay.
seeing the world, and I love art too. I used to be not so much of a painter, but I used to draw a lot.
Okay.
Yeah, when I was growing up, not so much later in life because just got busy. You know how that is. But I could see myself one day going back to drawing at least. So yeah.
Do you still have some of your drawings? Are there chances
I
of us to see something or?
I don't have them so much here. My mother has a lot of the stuff I
Oh,
did
okay.
when I was a teenager. So that's something I could get a hold of at some point, maybe. But and surprise, some of it is very fantasy oriented as well.
Oh, I wonder how that could have happened.
Yeah. So yeah, yeah.
So we would get your early fan art.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, some of it is very much fan art. Yeah, yeah. So, yeah. But yeah, that's. I think it's hard to pinpoint exactly because all the stuff that goes in here, all these experiences,
Oh yeah, I mean, it's hard to say then what
how they
exactly
come out exactly.
sparks
Yeah,
something and will be
yeah,
turned into something. Yeah, no, it's
yeah. And that's the case for your
almost
art.
impossible. Oh yeah, it's almost impossible to kind of like say kind of exactly, oh yeah, I was thinking of such and such a thing, or I was reading book 4 of Dead House Gates, and then I had that idea.
Right,
No, it
right.
doesn't work like that, of course
Because I
not.
think creativity is something that happens on the level of the unconscious sometimes.
Yeah.
And there's all this stuff deep down in there, and this sort of soup that's boiling, and when it comes out on the canvas or on the page as you're writing, you don't have full control over that, I think, sometimes. And that's
Yeah,
how
that's one thing. Yeah, and also the idea is not the end point, not the idea is the starting point. So
right.
from there, the work actually starts. No? So having the idea is wonderful, but you still have to put in a lot of work to get from the idea to something that you then in the end will actually put out into the world. No? So that takes a long, long time. So yeah, no, whatever your unconscious or your brain might kind like bring to the forefront, where you say, "Oh yeah, that's not a bad idea." No, that's not the end product. No.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, now that we had captured the creative experience in conversation, is there anything else that we want to talk about? We've gone not
Don't
quite
think so. I
2
mean, we
hours.
were, yeah, and we have covered quite a bit, haven't we?
We've done pretty well today. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Yeah. So, was a pleasure actually. Was
Oh my
great being
goodness.
on Dear Dr. Fantasy.
Oh, it's been such a joy for me to get to talk to you. I've been looking forward to this for quite a while. We've been talking about doing this even
Yeah.
before I think you started the channel. I knew you were going to start a channel. I said, okay, if you're going to start a channel, maybe you'd like to appear. And
Yeah,
hopefully,
you were very good in using this as kind like the motivational carrot. No? So if you
yeah, yeah,
want to
yeah.
be on theater, come on, start your channel.
So, but I'm so delighted that you have started the channel, and I'm very confident in predicting that there's going to be some really rich, wonderful analysis and some creative stuff and some fun stuff coming on Do Unicorns Read that I'm sure lots of people are going to want to check out. So absolutely, everybody, I encourage you to check out Angela's channel, Do Unicorns Read. Of course, there will be a link in the description. Yeah, thank you so much, everybody. And thank you, Angela, for being
Well,
such.
thank you, Philip, for the invite and all the encouragement, and yeah, for this yeah, wonderful yeah, closing word at the end about the wonderful things that this channel might bring. So yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Oh, it's such a pleasure. And with that, everyone, thanks so much for watching, and until next time.